Okay, so this is actually just 1.4 on completing the square. So I wanted to make sure to kind of go over that with everybody. So what we're going to do is we want to change the equation from a standard form to a vertex form. Remember, vertex form looks like this. Y equals A times x minus h, quantity squared, plus k. Okay, so now what we're going to do is going to use these steps to go through and to solve each one of these. And I did this in class, so I might do this just slightly different using the information we have, okay? So I'm going to add extra ones on here just so you know that we have some extra papers or extra examples. So you might want to get extra paper out if you need to, just to help you, because it will not fit in your book in that area there, okay? So what we're going to do, or get a whiteboard if you have something like that. Complete the square to change them to vertex form. So we have these steps. First, we're going to isolate the x term. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to use this equation right here, this function for this, and I'm going to on here on the side so I can show you the steps as we go. So the first thing we're going to do, it says isolate the x terms on one side. So I'm just write the equation. So that's the first thing. The first thing we do, so now we're going to isolate that. So that means we have to move this 2 over. So I'm going to rewrite my equation as negative 2 plus y equals x squared minus 2x. Now, for us, for number 2, we cannot do number 2 because we don't have anything to factor out for a. A is automatically a 1, and so we don't need to factor a 1 out. So we're just going to leave it like that, and then we can get to step 3. Now, caution. Always do step 1 before you do step 2, okay? And then look at it carefully. You are factoring out an A, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this one. So this right here, this next part is what helps us to determine how to make it look like that x minus h squared up here. So if you look at this, we want this to be on this side. Okay, we want that, so we need that quantity squared, and that's what this is going to do for us. So that's what number 3 does. It creates that x, 3 and 4 creates that x minus h squared. So first thing you do is you're going to take b. B is that negative 2, okay? So it's telling us to take b, and then let's do what's inside here. Okay, it's saying take b, which is a negative 2, and divide by 2. So that's what that looks like before I do anything else. So that's the inside. So I'm going to do that. That gives me a negative 1. And now it's telling me to square. Okay, it's telling me to square. That's what this is. So I'm going to square it now. And I get a 1. Now that 1 goes here, okay? And the reason I like to show that this is a perfect square trinomial, and then you're able to factor. Anytime you write this perfect square trinomial, it gives you what's I'm circling up here, this x minus h quantity squared, okay? So now what we want to do, though, is when we add that to one side, the balance on the other side, we need to add it to the other side. So I'm going to add 1 over here, okay? So now what I need to do is I need to write and set up number 4, okay? So I'm just going to go down here. This is what we did with number 3 pretty much. And then I'm going down to number 4. Step 2 we didn't have to do. So on number 4, we're going to, I'm just going to clean up some stuff. So 1 minus 2 is negative 1 plus y equals. It's telling you to set up this. So the easiest way to do it, x is always going to here, you're always going to have a square, okay? This right here, whatever this is always what's inside the parentheses. That's half of b, because you divided by 2, got half of it, and you got a negative 1, so that belongs here. Let me highlight that so you see what we did, okay? So this goes here. Every time you do that, whatever in that parentheses, the best way I know how to describe it, how to set it up, goes in there, okay? And so now The last thing you want to do, though, is get yourself back into vertex form. And so we need to now move over that -1. Add 1. And so my final equation in vertex form is y equals x minus 1 quantity squared plus 1. Okay, wrote it over here, and so now we can graph it. We know that we are going to shift to the right 1, and we're going to go up 1. So that's where our vertex is going to wind up. So 1, there, 1's right here. That's our vertex. We know it opens up because A is positive and A is a 1, so we're going to go out 1 over 1, out 1 over 1. Okay? There's our nice little vertex. Nice little vertex with our graph. Okay. So now let's look at number 2. Okay, let's look at number 2. Okay, so again, we want to be in this vertex form that I have up here. So we want to make sure that we are in this form when we get done, okay? Number 2, I'm going to start up here at the top on all right, so the first thing says isolate the x terms on one side, so we're going to move that 16 over. So I'm just going to write it up here. Let's do it down here. -16 plus y equals 2x squared minus 12x, okay? Now we look at A. A is a 2, so we can do this and factor out just the A, okay, just the number, all right? So when I factor out that, and what I like to do is I like to put my plus, because it's always going to plus, and then we have this little thing right here, okay? So now, and I'm just going to go up this way. So this was what we did for number 1, this is number 2. Now we're on number 3, okay? We're going to look inside the parentheses for our B, okay? So we're going to take B. So B is -6. Okay, -6, got to divide that by 2, and that gives me a -3. Next step is to square it. When I square it, I get +9. Okay, now I'm kind of erase this part here because it's kind of way. When I do take this 9 right here belongs here. It always goes there, okay? So I'm going to add 9. Now I know I have to do something over here. Something has to be put there because what you're balancing out is what you do one side, you have to do the other. The thing is, we got to remember, this whole thing is parentheses. This is a parentheses here, and on the outside's 2. So if I distribute the 2 in there and got rid of the parentheses, 2 times 9 would give me 18. So I added 9 to the right, but I'm going to add 18 here from 9 times 2. This 2, excuse me, that 9. Okay, so that's how I get the 18. Okay, so now, that was number 2. So let's write, we did number 3 by balancing out. So number 4 is we're going to, I'm really confused there. I don't want to get rid of it. So, so now we're going to put it on our vertex form. So on the left, I'm just going to combine, let me write it over here, 18 minus 16 plus y equals 2 times x squared minus 6x plus 9. So over here, this is going to give me a 2 plus y Now, this should be something squared. I want this part right here. I have my a, that's 2. X, it's always an x, minus, and again, if you remember what I said earlier, that this goes here. And I didn't mean, I put the minus and I shouldn't have, but the minus is coming from that 3. Okay, now I need to be in this form, so solve for y. So we will subtract 2, subtract 2. My final equation is y equals 2 times x minus 3 quantity squared minus 2. Okay, now let's graph it. This part is telling me I'm going to shift to the right 3, but I'm going to go down 2. Okay, my a is 1. I'm sorry, my a is 2. Opens up because a is positive. So 3 over 3, 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2. So your vertex is 3, negative 2, based on this up here. And then a opens up, so we're going to go out 1, up 2, out 1, up 2. Okay, let's look at number 3. Number 3, first thing we're going to do is we are going to move the negative 12 over by adding 12 to both sides. So I have 12 plus y equals a negative 4x squared minus 16x. The second thing it tells me to do is to factor out a. A for that part is negative 4. So I factor out a 4. 12 plus y equals, I pull out a negative 4. Means I divide everything by a negative 4, which leaves me with x squared. 16 divided by negative 4 is a positive 4x. And again, I need this little part here. So I'm going to also put it over here. That little line so I know to fill it up. Okay. Now looking inside that parentheses, b is 4. Okay. So we're going to take b, which is 4. Take 4 and we're going to divide it by 2. That gives us a positive 2. And we square it, and that gives us a positive 4. So I will now put 4 here. But again, if I distribute the negative 4 into this parentheses and got rid of the whole thing, then I want to make sure that I distribute negative 4 to 4. I'm just going to add negative 16 to the other side. Okay. So if I clean up this and make sure that I write it with my form of the vertex form. So on this side, I will have negative 4 plus y equals negative 4, okay, x. Remember this 2 goes in here. It's a positive 2, so that means we're going to add 2 in quantity squared. Now add the 4 to both sides because I need it in y equals. Just putting in vertex form. So if I add 4 to both sides, I'll write my equation up here. My equation is y equals negative 4 x plus 2 quantity squared plus 4. So here's the equation. Sorry, earlier this was the equation you needed. You should show both. All right, so this is telling me that now I can graph it. So it's telling me on the inside that this is telling me I'm going to go left 2 and up 4. So my vertex is a -2, +4. Left 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. A is -4, so we open down because it's negative. Okay. And so we're going to go from that vertex out 1 and then down 1, 2, 3, 4. Out 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a nice skinny graph here. Because remember that 4 is making it narrow. And before we start the other one, I want to make an observation to make sure everybody remembers. If you're crossing, you know it's going to cross the x-intercept, then you go ahead and cross down through. If you know you have a y-intercept like you do on this number 1, right here, excuse me, y-intercept of 2, and that's based on the original equation. So if here's your y-intercept. So you should be going on the, and you should cross it and go to the other side of 2. So don't stop there. Drag it out a little bit. Okay. All right, let's try this next one. The other one, I just want to make sure that we pay attention. Slightly different. Everything's rules stay the same. Everything does the same thing. First we do is we're going to move 2 over. So we're going to add 2 and add 2. And I'm just going to start this up here. So 2 plus y equals 1/2 x squared plus 2x. Now I factor out a. A is 1/2. So I have 2 plus y. A is 1/2. So what does that give me? So be careful, you are dividing by 1/2. Okay. So this leaves me with x squared here, because these cancel, same top and bottom. But 2 divided by 1/2. Well, this is fractions, and the rules say if I'm dividing by it, a fraction, then I can change it to the reciprocal and multiply it. And so that means I am taking out 1/2 of 2, which leaves me with a 4x. And then I have a little thing here, and I'm going to put a little thing there. Okay? So again, be careful. It's not saying 2 divided by 2. I'm saying 2 divided by 1/2. That is something different. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can take b inside the parentheses. So b is 4. Take 4 divided by 2, we get a 2. Now square the 2, and you get 4. So I'm adding 4 here, but now I want to be careful. Again, if I distribute the half into the parentheses to get rid of the parentheses, 1/2 times 4, so 1/2 times 4 gives me 2. So I'm only adding 2 over here. So I'm going to bring it down here. So I get 4, just cleaning things up. Y on the left, on the right, I want to change it to where I have that square. And again, if you look at it, I'm going to always look at what's inside here to put in here. Okay, it's always going to be x, and that's a +2, so it's going to be a +2. And so now subtract 4. Your final equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 2 quantity squared minus 4. So this tells me my vertex is at -2, -4. Because I am moving this way, moving to the left 2, and I'm moving down 4. So moving over 2, 4. And so this is a is a half, it's positive, so we're open up. So we're going to go out 1 and just up a half. Out 1, up a half. This should make your graph wider, okay? All right. Now, one thing nice about this one, we know that our y-intercept is at 0, -2, because it's automatically showing us that. So at 0, -2, you can actually put something there. And if you're trying to make it look, you know, if you hate that half, you're trying to make it look better, this one problem helps us to do that. So remember, the axis of symmetry comes down, so it's over 2 from the vertex on go 1, 2. So it has to go, this other point on the other side has to go there. So then you can draw that, and that might help you have a better graph. And then again, I do cross the y-axis at -2. So I just did a couple extra problems on here just to practice completing square. I'm not worried about graphing it right now, but I just want to make sure we're okay with following the steps. So first step is we're going to move the 4 over. Okay, I don't have an a to factor out. A is 1, but I don't have to factor anything out. So all I got to do now is to go to step 3. So step 3, I'm going to take b, which is 6. I want to divide b by 2. Okay, and that gives me a 3. And then I'm going to square it, which gives me a 9. So that I add here, but I also have to add it here. Okay. So now I'm just going to clean up some math here and do some math. Going to clean this up. 9 minus 4 is 5 plus y. And on this side, I want to write it in my standard form. When we do this, we create the x minus h quantity squared part. We do that part right here for us, okay? A is 1, so it's on the outside, just stays there. We have an x, and remember we always look at this right here. What's inside here to tell us what to put inside here. So for us, it's a positive 3, and we square it because of the square out here, okay? So now we have to solve for y because we need to be in this form. So next step is to move that 5 over. So we get y equals x plus 3 quantity squared minus 5. Now, if you were to distribute and do FOIL here and combine like terms, you should always come up with what you start with. So that's one way to check. I probably didn't mention before, but that's one way to check, okay? Now, I am going to graph this one only because there's a special thing here. So what I do on here is like, you know that this is, if you go to graph, so you know it's going to go this way, 3 to the left, 3, and then down 5. So your vertex is a -3, -5. Okay, you still can use the A, what the A does, but also know that you have a y-intercept there. So you also have a point at 0 and 4, so that could help you graph, and then you can find your third point off of there, okay? Because sometimes when it's a little tiny like that, it doesn't always work. Here's my second extra example. So I'm going to have to first move this 14 over. So I'm just rewrite it. 14 plus y equals a 2n squared minus 4n. Step 2, factor out a. A is 2. So I'm going to leave this the same. I'm going to take out a 2, and I am left with n squared minus, and that's going to be 2n, okay? But I know that I'm going to add something, and something has to go here. And if something goes there, something also has to go over here, okay? So inside the parentheses, find b. b is -2. So I'm going to take -2, divide by 2, and I get a -1. I'm going to square that, and I wind up with 1. I'm going to add 1 here, but I also have to add something that's, again, distribute the 2. 2 times 1, I would add a 2 over here. Next, I just want to clean up this other side. So 16 plus y equals outsides of 2. Now remember, in here, we get something squared. Okay. We have an n, and this right here is telling us what belongs in there. And that's going to be a -1. Last step is to move the 16 over so that we have it in standard, vertex form. Okay, and then that's done. This one we have a big, moving over, just this 16 right here is really large to graph, so sometimes it makes it harder when it's so huge, unless you have a big graph. Okay, so just practice completing the square.